It has been 10 years since the sidelining of the Star Wars Expanded Universe and the creation of the new canon timeline. In this 3-part series, I will be exploring how I got to where I am right now as an Expanded Universe fan, where we are right now as a fandom, and then what I think the future of the Expanded Universe looks like. So without further ado, let's begin. Part 1. My journey with the Expanded Universe since the sidelining. Before the sidelining of the Expanded Universe, I was a Star Wars fan from reading what happened in the Expanded Universe, but I hadn't read as much. A little bit of history for people that may be watching these videos and don't know. Disney bought Lucasfilm on October 30th, 2012. And then it took a couple of years for that to completely turn into creating the new canon timeline and what I now call the sidelining of the Expanded Universe on April 25th, 2014. Which of course is now 2024. And 10 years will have passed tomorrow as of this part. You may hear of this as a reboot. Maybe a soft reboot. Because at this time, they took the original saga, episodes 1 to 6, that George Lucas made, and the Clone Wars TV series, the 2008 3D one, and then took that over to a new timeline and just chucked out everything else. So that's the basic premise of what we're talking about here. So I started off not really knowing anything about the fandom at all. Like, I was never big into Facebook, I was never big into being online. I just read some stories and was like, that's really cool, and read some things on Wikipedia. And so I love Star Wars because of those things I read a lot more than if they were just movies. But then, April 25th, 2014, they announced the legendary Expanded Universe is turning a new page. This article on StarWars.com announced that they were starting a new canon. And it will not be following what has already been laid down in the Expanded Universe. Furthermore, everything that is being reprinted that was Expanded Universe will have a Legends label on it. This was a big decision for Lucasfilm because as of this point, Star Wars was the only franchise with a single cohesive continuity between different mediums and authors and writers. So the Legends label, I didn't like it, especially at the start. I still don't really like it, but I've come to accept it because it's around and it's here to stay. Even though my collection is not bannered where possible. I think the only one is a reprint, I'll get to that. I was hopeful, I was like, oh, this can be really cool. You can do something like, the one I like keeping referencing is my idea of going, let's frame the movies differently. The Darth Plagueis was maybe alive 500 years before Sidious. Or maybe it's just a Sith story that he'd heard about, and he was using it to tempt Anakin when he didn't know that it was possible to actually save others from death. That would have been a really cool reframing of the movies with a different timeline. And to go, okay, maybe some of the things in the EU people weren't as keen on can be changed. But I still want to see the universe progress. And then what really bowled me over, knocked me over, we went to see The Force Awakens. And that was when I was like, I hate this. They just did Empire vs. Rebellion again, they're doing nothing new. There's so much cool stuff in the EU that yes, I don't expect them to fully adapt it things, but I want them to actually do a cool story that progresses the universe, and you have really cool moments, and you see a new Jedi Order of some sort, you see things going on, but no, you gotta have A New Hope with reskinned. For me as an EU fan, that was pretty shocking, and I was quite angry for a while. I put rants on Facebook at that time, and I think there was a lot of people that were also quite angry about it. I started becoming a bit more active in the community, and 2016 was when I started reading the Expanded Universe chronologically with the novels. I'm getting there with the comics at this time, and now, since 2016, I am up to Survivor's Quest, which is still a long journey, but I'm not really trying to rush it. I'm enjoying it. So there was this big thing that we will not get any new Expanded Universe stories after the announcement. And so fans, rightly so, wanted them and started doing petitions and things. And this is where I see a little bit of the beginnings of some of the different parts of the Expanded Universe fandom, niche enough as it is, becoming even more split. People being angry at what they did, so they don't want them to do new stories, although everyone would probably be open to trying new stories if they put them out. Like, the majority would have bought them and tried it. And it started off when I heard about Twin Suns Foundation a little bit before the 2018 Last Jedi, which I specify because you have issue 49 of the original Marvel comics, you have part 4, essentially, of the Coruscant Knights trilogy, and you have part 3 of Star Wars According to the Droids, which is also a older Marvel comic. That was an adaptation of A New Hope from the Droids' perspective. They're all titled The Last Jedi. And so I was like, oh, cool. I sort of get on board with it, but I'm not really putting anything towards it because I didn't really have the money to, really, honestly. I was building my collection, and that was where my money was going to. Plus, I was just starting out into the adult world. I graduated in 2014 from school, and so there was a lot of my first stages of going into the adult world are coloured with me thinking of what's happening with Star Wars. So, generally, after Force Awakens, there seemed to be a pretty good cohesiveness between EU fans. A lot of us didn't like the direction it was going, a lot of us wanted to go, we want more Expanded Universe, and a lot of us going, well, why couldn't they just make something good? In our opinions, right? And if you're watching this and you like the new canon, all power to you. It's not for us. And this is speaking from an Expanded Universe fan perspective. I feel like if you're a big fan of the Expanded Universe, the new canon is made for a different target audience. And so you can be fans of, say, 2 different franchises. Let's say you like Berserk, and you like Warhammer 40k. That's about as related as I feel the Star Wars new canon and Expanded Universe are at this point. And then The Last Jedi 2018 came out. This was a big shift in the fandom of the Expanded Universe, and a lot of hate was going around because The Force Awakens was, to me, the gut punch to me. Like, it broke my soul, and I felt like they can not do worse than this. So I went in with no expectations, and I feel like The Last Jedi actually worked better than The Force Awakens for that, because I didn't have any hopes for it. Yet I still held on. I was still watching things. I forgot to mention, after The Force Awakens, I decided to go, alright, I'm going to read 2 books. What's this Journey to Force Awakens thing they're going, okay, I'll read Aftermath. And then after The Force Awakens, alright, I'm going to read the novel of The Force Awakens, because apparently the deleted scenes are good, and it may make a bit more sense. To try and sort of go, is it really that much of a gut punch? And to this day, I've never read another new canon novel. And I've never read the comics. I just go, don't care. They weren't for me. They're not for what I would call an expanded universe fan. Now, they might be for a new canon fan, but as stated, separate franchises. This is where my brain is right now. I always saw from the start, they're starting a new timeline, nothing expanded universe counts towards it. And there were these people going, oh, what if they bring this into it? What if they bring that into it? And I'm like, but it won't be them anyway, because there was a different character with the same name. And I clearly always had that divide in my mind, that there's new canon and there's expanded universe, and they do not intermix. They're like, they don't do that. They're like two separate franchises that go, gonna smash against each other. Because they really don't get on properly. So The Last Jedi came out, and it introduced new canon lore things that do not make sense from an expanded universe perspective, further establishing it as a new canon timeline and what they're trying to build with it. It also showed the vision, or lack thereof, of what they wanted to do with the sequel trilogy. And what spawned from that was even more hatred for what they were doing. This was about the time when I started noticing the Phantom Menace. Obviously a play on the Phantom Menace. And they went hard on YouTube and social medias and everything, not liking the new canon, not liking what they were doing with it, and trying to aggressively fight back against it. And a lot of EU fans felt justified with that point of thinking, because from an Australian perspective, and that's a lot of what Americans jump to. And then as the Phantom Menace was a fairly big thing, Lucasfilm took notice, and the Phantom Menace identified as Expanded Universe fans, and so over time, Expanded Universe fans were trying to build up a bit of a rapport with Lucasfilm of like, we're not these haters, we just want our timeline continued. No, we don't want the new canon to stop, we just want it to continue as a separate timeline. That's fine, and then people can pick what they like. The Phantom Menace came in, we want to tear down the new canon, we don't want that to continue, blah blah blah. So on and so forth. EU fans around this time would know what they were talking about. But the problem, I think, with what came with the Phantom Menace jumping in is it felt like they were jumping on a bandwagon. And maybe some people that were Expanded Universe fans, and may still be Expanded Universe fans, but the majority of what I saw were people jumping on a bandwagon to just hate on new canon, while identifying as fans of the Expanded Universe. And I think that's a little bit disingenuous, and of course I don't mean everyone. There's definitely Expanded Universe fans in there. There were specifically like some that ended up going, I've got this Expanded Universe collection that they dug out of the shed, and then even now I see that they're not doing Expanded Universe content. I know that it's not the way to get viewers, I know that. So The Last Jedi came about, the Phantom Menace stuff coming about. And the split between EU fans became even wider. So we had those that really agreed with the Phantom Menace, what they were doing, and then we had ones on the other side. There was a particular group that tried to fight back against the Phantom Menace, but they did it in the same way the Phantom Menace was doing it, and I didn't really agree with that. Like, I sort of got invited to their group. Some drama happened. This was when I was still I didn't really understand the Phantom Menace. And then they were trying to say some things, and then I just looked at it and went, you're just doing the same thing, except for you're hating on the Phantom Menace instead of hating on new canon and other stuff, and then it's just all this drama thing between groups, and I'm like, oh. The expanded universe fandom split even more. And by this time I start noticing that numbers in, say, a Facebook group for expanded universe fans were not indicative of really being united. And then a lot of the times people will comment even now still things hating on what they're doing now compared to just enjoying the expanded universe. All this drama stuff happened. And then Lucasfilm looked at it, and I can understand from a perspective of from the outside, not being involved in any of it, that they can't tell the difference between the Phantom Menace and the EU fans, and the different types of fans that they would have, and who would actually buy their stuff. And this went on for a while. Things have settled down a bit more by now. It's been 10 years. So, a lot can happen in 10 years. But now, to wrap up this whole split fandom bit, we have people in different groups, we've got people in different areas, we've got people that just, I think from the start, were never in the fandom, but they're EU fans, and they would buy more expanded universe stuff if we continue this. There's particular people on board with trying to continue the expanded universe. There was a billboard, I forget the years off the top of my head, I think I'll look it up, but there was billboards put out the front of Lucasfilm by Twin Suns Foundation twice. So the first time, a plea to continue the expanded universe from the fans that go, look, we want to work with Lucasfilm, not be aggressive and just try to attack them. Didn't really seem to be effective, and yet it showed the fan efforts of putting money towards hiring a billboard space and all of that. And this is mostly hearsay because I wasn't really paying attention to them at that time, but around the start of the sidelining of the expanded universe, I saw Matt Wilkins on YouTube. He's defending the expanded universe series and a lot of that, and then people that were in that same circle, or at least have become in that same circle now, were told, look, if you really want to help someone, then make a charity donating books. And that's how Twin Suns started, because they were saying, look, all of this, put it towards something useful. And so, call their bluff and do it. And then there's also, if we're going to talk about this splits in the fandom, there's fans that I've heard of and interacted with a little bit that only want the Bantam era books. They don't like the Del Rey stuff for some reason. So there's already been some splits in the fandom with extremes and stuff, and seeing what happens there. But yeah, this turns into Lucasfilm's reaction to the fans. So they haven't been the most amiable, the employees at Lucasfilm, especially on Twitter, and I know Twitter's not very good, but it did lead to more of escalating drama and the extreme response that the Phantom Menace gave. And so my journey is, I'm sort of trying in the middle, like, I just want to enjoy the EU, man. And I'm reading through it a bit and stuff. It incentivized me to. And then it's going, well, obviously, all this stuff's going on as well. And in 2018, in October of 2018, I started YouTube. Inspired by Matt Wilkins, I started doing some book reviews as I was reading the novels. And of course, I started reading the novels earlier, and I was just reading them as I went, so I was like, okay, as I read them. And then I started doing video games because I liked watching gaming videos on YouTube and doing that, which is what I primarily came to focus on here. Yeah, the reaction to fans wasn't great. So, I mentioned Classic Marvel issue 108 being released. There was a second billboard by Twin Suns Foundation, which I did put money towards because I was like, this is the last time. If this doesn't work, nothing will. That a big fan effort like a billboard and that would be able to show. And guess what? They did Classic Marvel issue 108, which was for the anniversary of Marvel, and doesn't have a direct causation, but there is a possible correlation between the billboard going out and Marvel 108. However, I have thoughts on Marvel 108 from when it came out. Suffice it to say, it seemed like an advertisement for the new canon comics. And it didn't line up perfectly with the continuity of the original Marvel run. All this time, Star Wars: The Old Republic was continuing as the only thing, and the only thing still that continues to be an expanded universe game that is getting continual story updates. And yet, without the clear look at continuity control as they had before the sidelining of the EU, it appears to me like the quality of the storytelling in Star Wars: The Old Republic dropped. Especially after Shadow of Revan and going into the Knights of the Fallen Empire stuff and the Eternal Empire things. We've got all this, and they were saying about reprinting books. But I have not seen reprints of some books. Actually, here's a good example. I managed to get Young Jedi Knights books, right? Secondhand. I have never seen these reprinted, or the Junior Jedi Knights, and some other young adult series, young audience series, have never been reprinted to my knowledge. And especially here in Australia, so much of it has been a learning experience of trying to find the stuff secondhand even, to be able to buy with ridiculous shipping expenses. Marvel 108 came out, and we could see sales figures for it. And at one point, it was beating pretty much every new canon comic, I believe, that was coming out at the time. Even when some people were a bit dubious on it. My journey with Marvel 108 is I pre-ordered it at a place, and then they cancelled it because they couldn't get it in. And so, thankfully, Jeff, who's been on my channel, got me a copy as well. And so they was just going, let's reprint things and reprint things. So after The Last Jedi in 2018, I was very angry still. And I think the anger in the fandom, between fandom menace people being, using a quite aggressive method, and then other people feeding off of that, made me feel even more exasperated about the situation. And over time, I've become more and more disillusioned about the EU ever being continued. Because you see things like that, and I go, why are these people being so aggressive to the people that they want to get more stuff from? Or maybe they don't want more stuff from, maybe they just want them to end, maybe they just want them to die. As in, the franchise die out. I started my YouTube channel as a way to try and be a positive influence on the community as well. And to bring people together and just enjoying the expanded universe. And as an attempt into this space, I did start an Expanded Universe book club, which did include some members of the Fandom Menace, because I think that even now, they're part of that group and they do that to the side, but as long as they come on the book club and they talk about it, we can all find a common ground of loving the Expanded Universe and talking about the stuff in it. And that fizzled out. Because honestly, I was the only one, I felt like, anyway, I was the only one that cared about it. And I get that people have other priorities in life. Talking about a fictional universe that you love on the internet is not the highest of your priorities. But I just wanted at least one other person to put some more effort in. Especially some people, like I was like, okay, I want to have a nice chat before we start the streams. That'd be nice. And get to know the people and actually make more friends online. Well, so some of them did, which was really good. But that was basically like, okay, we're here a few minutes early and now we're about to start type thing. But some people would just turn up partway through the stream or a little bit later and they were probably busy, but it seems like they just did the bare minimum towards it. So that fizzled out. The Expanding Universe Book Club, I think that those stream archives are still up somewhere. I forget if they are or aren't. Some of them are, some of them aren't. I believe I've archived some of them on my own hard drive and that though. And so that didn't make me feel very positive about Expanding Universe fans uniting either, because if we can't all care enough to put extra effort into something that is, we could change it to fortnightly, we could change it to once a month if we need to, then I really don't know if it'll work out. Like, if we can't unite, how many people are there? Like, there are at least 3, maybe 4 people. It's regulars. We'd have some guests on, possibly. If we can't even unite 3 people, how do we expect to unite the rest of the fandom over all of the social medias and all that? How do we expect to present a united front to there? And this time of this part of the timeline also was when people started talking about this Expanded Universe movement. And I think that really coloured everyone's perceptions, because it's very much a thing of, as what I see it, as Americans making this fictional timeline and then wanting certain entertainment, making it very political. As far as I've seen it, the Expanding Universe has never had a movement as such. Let me double check the definition of movement. A group of people with a particular set of aims and ideas. But the connotation around movement is very political, especially coming from a largely US-based online presence of people talking about it. And so it becomes, just saying movement brings up in people's minds the images of like women's rights movements and anti-war movements and whatever other type of political movement people would have. And this is, while I care a lot about the Expanding Universe, this is not that important. I mean, this is also true of my general values that I hold. They have reprinted a bunch of stuff. So they've reprinted comics in Epic Legends collections, and more recently they've started doing other omnibuses of comics. But the trouble with those is I wanted to get the big Knights of the Old Republic omnibus, but then at the time that I was trying to look for it, it was completely unavailable. Like, they do one printing of it, and then they don't do another printing of it for ages, which is a pain in the butt. and it doesn't make it very accessible. Early 2021, they announced the Essential Legends Collection, which is reprints of novels as well as some with new unabridged audiobooks, which is a really good way of doing it. But so we're getting new unabridged audiobooks. Woo! Not new stories, but the new unabridged audiobooks, so that's pretty cool. I've been listening to some more recently and it's like, yeah, nice. But that basically told me they're not going to reprint everything. They're only going to print the essentials, which is, some of their choices are a bit odd anyway. But that shows a bit of a turn as well of like, they're just acknowledging that they're not going to reprint everything. But the sentiment against the Legends label did drive people to just buy secondhand or buy copies without the labels. Like, I have got copies without the labels for that reason, is like, I don't like the label. And they've got new covers on the Essential Legends collections, so it's like, It's nice to see some art of, I think Piggy was on the Wraith Squadron cover recently announced, but other than that, and that's Vort's Bringing. Oh yes, as time went on, they've released more new canon things that have the same titles of Expanded Universe things. Say I want to search Tales of the Jedi. I have to put in Tales of the Jedi Legends. I want to search Heir to the Empire. I think that comes up as something else now too. I want to search some more obscure things with reused titles. You search The Last Jedi. It'll come up with the bloomin' movie and not the 2013 novel by Catherine Bonhoff and Michael Reeves and that stuff. And so I've gotten increasingly frustrated at them hiding search results under the new canon titles. And so on and so forth. Seeing some things in the community. So Jaina Solo was a fan choice poll winner, as well as Revan, who I have up there. And she's amazing, my favourite figure. But the following fan choice poll after Jaina Solo was at like the height of all of the division between fans and stuff. That ended up being a thing of like, Ben Skywalker won the actual vote. But then the people doing the votes just went, well, we're not going to do an EU figure, that's discounted, we're going to go and do the fan choice. Like, the winner is now Dr. Aphra, I think it was. And then they still haven't made a figure, as far as I know. And just various things, and I don't know if that was from Lucasfilm or something else happening. But it was a lot because of it's very easy to see drama between EU fans and new canon fans, at least at that point. I think it still is, but Twitter's Twitter. Or X now. But that's another point through the time. There's been increasing discourse between new canon and Expanded Universe fans, where Expanded Universe fans that were angry would say, oh, this part of the new canon sucks. And then, of course, it's online, so someone else is going to say, oh yeah, I liked it, you're just stupid. And then there's things from both sides that I have seen of people just evolving into the internet insulting each other. No, that's just how it goes. From the start of the new canon, articles started to be released by media outlets and information given that isn't accurate. Say, an article's released, this is the first time we have a female protagonist in Star Wars. Well, that's blatantly not true. Like, I mentioned Tales of the Jedi before, Nomi Sunrider. And then, as I was saying, Jaina Solo is one of my favourite characters, and all of that. Plus, figures-wise, Woman Black Series figures, in Australia at least, I got Jaina, I checked my receipt from way back at one point, for $27. And I think they're like $30 US for the modern figures. Darth Nihilus. I think I mentioned this when I was talking about Darth Nihilus. And he was 55 Aussie dollars. And I'm like, man, that's just crazy. I could probably get it for cheaper if someone bought one for me in the US and posted it to me. So I stopped buying figures as well, even if they were EU ones, because there was not as good a quality kept, and they was just stupid expensive. And over time, I just see all of this, and I'm not going, okay, well, I'm having this thing where I'm always having to reach out to people to try and start things. I'm just going to do my own thing and enjoy stuff, and I keep doing videos, and I started streaming a bit too, which is good fun. And as of now, I have played through all of the Star Wars The Old Republic main story on stream. Every class, each expansion, and there hasn't been a show of interest to play through the Eternal Empire stuff again, to go to the later story update with another character, so I've done one playthrough of that. But I have gone through the main story of it, which I started at the very beginning of streaming and doing things. And that's been a long journey too. I then started really looking into the announcement a bit later on, with all this discourse on the internet, things changing. Throughout the years, I forgot to mention this before, throughout the years, I started, I was following Joe Bongiorno's timeline. And I never really liked the timeline gold as such, because that's not how I would use a timeline. It's not how I would read it. It's cool to have a timeline of events, but it's not my type of one, because I would just want to know where things were, and then I would read it myself, especially by now, rather than looking at secondhand information for the most part. And then he started putting new canon in his timeline, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to get every piece of material. I was trying to collect everything to know, okay, I want to try and get this as much as I can and read as much as I can of the EU. But I was finding that nowhere had everything, and some lists were incomplete, or some lists like Joe Bongiorno's website, and started putting in new canon stuff into the same timeline, and not a huge fan of that. So, I created my own timeline as a personal document first. And I would not have the passion and drive to do that now. But it's already there, so just tweaking it is fine as I read through things. But that's how much I cared about it, is I created my own timeline that I called a Definitive Expanded Universe Timeline. You can find it on the website, callumscantina.com. And then I share that around, I announce it on my channel and everything. I know of one person that uses it, other than myself. Maybe one, because someone actually comes back and asks again about things. And then maybe one or two others do. They mentioned having a look at it, but I don't really hear a lot back and forth with it. So that makes me disillusioned about how much Expanded Universe fans interact and want to look at things too, but with the website, at least it's more accessible. Now, yes, as I was looking at more information about the Expanded Universe, people have called it a decanonizing of the Expanded Universe, or a reboot, which neither technically fit the bill properly. Because as I've looked at the articles around the date, I look at information beforehand. I don't really look at information past the reboot date, no, past the date of the sidelining and that sort of thing. They never officially decanonized it. And yes, the Expanded Universe was canon. I've got a whole Defending the Expanded Universe series. I've got a page on Defending the Expanded Universe in my website. Check that out if you want to see quotes and some proof on there. And then I've talked about canon tiers and how they shouldn't really apply to the Expanded Universe, even though I use a custom version for my timeline. And all of that. But I've covered those in previous videos. But they never officially decanonized expanded universe. They never said it was a reboot. So all they did was go, all of this stuff, I should go that way because this is where my shelf is. Push it away. We're not gonna be following that. And yeah, we're gonna take stuff from it. Of course, we own the stuff. We're gonna take some things from it. And yeah, that's another bit of a gripe I have, is them taking expanded universe characters' names and putting them on characters in the new canon. So after Last Jedi, I was like, oh man, my brain's holding on. I'm not letting go. I continued to watch movies and TV shows from the new canon up until The Rise of Skywalker, including Resistance and everything else, because I'm like, I do really want this to be good. If you have a movie, say like Rogue One, and that is the base standard of quality, and you can only go up from there, then that would be good. It didn't get better. And so after Rise of Skywalker, I'm out. I give up completely on new canon. I'm fully focused on expanded universe. I've been reading the books and that. And I don't care enough about one or two things that might be good to sludge through all of the crap that I don't like in this, to find one or two things that I might enjoy individually, separate to everything else. And that's where I stopped. And I've even explored more other franchises now, like looking at manga and other things, compared to hyper-focusing on Star Wars all the time. That's why I'm not very quick with reading Star Wars books, is sometimes I'm just reading something else. Like Dune, I read after the Dune Part 1 movie, and stuff like that. So as I've been uncovering more information regarding the expanded universe, development of things at the time, and that sort of thing, I found more and more pointing towards possible elements inside Lucasfilm that wanted to do a new timeline, that didn't want to keep having to follow the expanded universe. But that's not the topic for today. That is way too big. Suffice it to say, TCW has always been divisive. So where I am now, after completely getting rid of new canon, I have left Facebook groups that are mixed canon but say they're EU. I've tried to clear my feed of new canon stuff because I just feel like I don't want to see it. I do still hold on to a little bit of that resentment for what Star Wars has become with the new canon. I can't help it. I have moved past a lot of the anger and everything. I think when I was able to stop myself, like, okay, I've watched Rise of Skywalker now, there's closure, I was able to move on from a lot of the anger that I was holding on to, and that helped a lot. But I can't even passingly be interested in it. Like, I hear something about Warhammer 40k, which I don't really care about. I am interested in reading a book of it, just to see, but I'm not in that fandom. I'm not a fan of Warhammer 40k. I hear something in passing and go, oh, okay, cool. I can't do that with a new canon. I always, something pops up and go, ugh. Get it out of here. Not interested on YouTube. Hide it on Facebook. Just say, not relevant on Twitter. That's another thing. Is a lot of algorithms just see Star Wars, right? So you can't really be watching Star Wars videos on YouTube. You can't be looking at Star Wars posts and stuff on X or Twitter and not see new canon afterwards start to be suggested to you. Because the algorithms aren't so refined as to go, you like one part of Star Wars, but not the other. I'm only going to show you this. So that, I think, is another reason why I've hardly watched Star Wars videos on YouTube now. Let's be honest. I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm happy doing my own thing. If people want to collab on YouTube and do things, then I'll be quite happy to talk about it. And I'd love to sort of support the EU creators, but some of that I go, okay, it's not the type of video that maybe now I'd watch. My tastes have changed a bit as I've got older too. I have a little bit less time to watch things and all that, but... So right now, I'm at the point where I'm doing my own thing, and as you can tell looking at my channel, my YouTube channel and that, I stream over on Twitch because I got affiliate, and if I'm able to make a little bit of money out of that, that'd be good. But now I've started putting other games up on YouTube. I'm expanding out. Let's be honest. Star Wars EU will always be with me as a very important place in my heart. It is the epitome of what I want to achieve if I'm ever a storyteller that achieves this level of magnitude of how many stories to tell and all that, with different authors and that. I think it's a great example of how something was so good and then what not to do in repetition, so that the continuity and the franchise stays intact and keeps the hardcore fans. I'm at the point where I don't believe that Lucasfilm will choose to continue the expanded universe of their own volition. They've seen that things sell. They're doing some things towards it because they still want to try and make money back, right? But Star Wars is on a decline because we like expanded universe. All these hardcore fans that love these books and stories and things, Lucasfilm doesn't really feel like they've respected us when speaking online about a lot of the EU, and with their actions with not continuing the EU. And I get that, okay, someone else is in charge of Lucasfilm. You have a new vision of what you want Star Wars to be, so do a new timeline, start that off. Yeah. I think I've talked about other things before with that. This has sort of been my journey, a bit of a journey. Went from hatred to sort of acceptance, and then I was fully on board with getting the EU continued as best I could. But now I'm disillusioned about it because I don't think that EU fans will be able to unite enough to be able to give the numbers that Lucasfilm would want to see. No petitions have worked. People have tried petitions. Nothing has changed things. For every person that will actively create some content, or even speak up a bit in a group, there doesn't seem to be as much interaction as I would hope with the EU. And it's interesting to see what does get interaction and what doesn't. And more recently, I have been doing a tabletop RPG. I ran it to a group of people that really are dedicated to turning up and doing really well, so I have some hope in that and just having fun with the TTRPG. Playing Star Wars Saga Edition now and doing all that. We tried each of the systems. It was super fun and I'm loving it. GMing it, I was worried for ages about GMing it, but we're all learning and we're all going through things and it is a super good time. So I think that's my biggest part of enjoyment of the EU right now, is running the tabletop RPG and having so much fun with it. Would love for more people to come around it. I'm focusing on video games now, and if people want to talk about novels and comics and things, I'm very happy to, in a context of reacting to a video or coming on a discussion with someone. But I don't think I want to particularly make a video about it because I ended up procrastinating way too much about making those videos and I wasn't enjoying them for what they were. So I'm at that point with the EU now, and I'm branching out with other games and things, and very happy to always talk about the EU. And I will be continuing to learn as I go. So yeah, give me your thoughts down below. What has your journey been like? I will be very interested to hear that. If any of you want to record a little video and share your journey of where you've been at the start of the sidelining of the EU and then where you've come to, then I would love to hear from you too, and I will be happy to put those videos up here on my channel and share that. Talk to me. I've got Discord. In Callum's Cantina Discord, I remove specific Star Wars roles because there's not many people in there talking anyway. And we just talk about all sorts in there, but reach out if you're actually interested in doing anything together. I'm happy to be doing stuff with whoever, as long as you love the EU. Let me know in the comments otherwise, and that wraps up part 1 of me talking about things in this 10-year anniversary of the sidelining of the expanded universe. I'll see you tomorrow with part 2.